Hello and welcome to A Bitter Draft. I'm Pat Doherty, and today we're going to be talking about The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. The Pariah is a 600-page epic fantasy novel, and it's the first in Ryan's new series, The Covenant of Steel. It's the tale of Alwyn Scribe, a member of a band of outlaws led by the bandit king Deccan Scarl, who took him in as a child. The Pariah has its share of political intrigue and action, but at its heart, it's a tale of honor, compassion, and loyalty. Three things that you really wouldn't expect to be part of the moral code of an outlaw. Religion also plays a major role here, but not necessarily in the preachy way that can turn some people off of stories with religious features. Ryan is best known for Bloodsong, where readers were first introduced to Valen Alsorna, who quickly became a favorite of readers in the genre. And I know some people were turned off by Ryan's change of point of view characters from the first one, which was just Valen, to multiple in the two sequels in that series. But I personally wasn't too upset about that because I thought the stories overall wrapped up pretty well and ended pretty strongly. Regardless of which side the proverbial fence you sit on for that series, The Pariah is a compelling start to a new series, and I'd recommend it to both old and new Ryan readers. As for the plot, we're introduced to Alwyn as he's orchestrating a trap for an unsuspecting traveler on the road. And from then on, it's clear that, although growing up in an outlaw gang that's full of people with a penchant for violence and really not much else going on between the ears, Alwyn is far from your typical outlaw. He's smart, calculating, and perceptive, traits that are definitely not going to get him into trouble in the future of the series. Definitely not. At the outset, Alwyn is content with his found family, and Deccan has been a sort of adoptive father to him. Deccan's band has complete control over the Chavine forest inside one of the duchies of Albermain, the kingdom where most of the story is located. Only the most bold or stupid travelers use the long stretch of road that borders that forest, because it's more likely than not that they'll either end up coming out empty-handed or dead. Unfortunately for Alwyn, though, not all good things can last. Now, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the book's blurb, but I've seen people complain about it in different reviews, so I figured it's worth mentioning that if you're super sensitive, go ahead and pause and skip forward about 60 seconds. With that out of the way, an act of betrayal leaves Alwyn eventually with a totally fresh start in a unit of Albermain's military that's filled with former criminals. And emphasis on former because they're forgiven all of their past sins when they pledge to the company and to the Seraphile, the Covenant's deity, to fight in a war against the pretender for the throne. Sounds sort of standard, but it was definitely interesting enough to keep me going. With the two different plots advertised from the outset, the narrative did feel a little bit clunky, but Alwyn's life as an outlaw, as a starting point, was definitely super important to his overall growth as a character throughout the story, and for his motivation. So it takes a bit of time for the eventual main plot to surface, but in the end I thought it was worth the time. That being said, the pacing did suffer a decent amount because of that stop-start nature of the story, and it took to almost about the halfway point to really become consistent for the pacing. The unorthodox structure of the story kind of led to a situation where there wasn't really a big bad for most of the book, but you can tell that the series is setting one up come the end. The world of the Pariah is pretty interesting. On the magic, we'll call it low to medium. There are a few witchy rituals, but throughout the book, nobody's hurling fireballs just yet, so there's nothing too crazy on that front, whether it's hard or soft magic. Although from the little that there was, it's definitely more on the soft side. There's a map included on the cover that marks the important name locations and lines up all the different duchies in Albermain with the main cities located as well. So it's nothing fancy like you find in Wheel of Time or Middle-earth, but it gets the job done. It doesn't have any forests or mountains or other landscape marks like that, which is something that I usually oddly look forward to in maps because I'm a kind of sucker for that. But it does help you understand where the characters are throughout the story, so on that front it was useful enough. You've got your typical frozen north with the hostile Viking-like barbarians, which is definitely a bit of a tired trope at this point, but I didn't totally hate it. And it offered for some compelling sequences spotted throughout the story as well. The cast of characters in The Pariah isn't huge in the grand scheme of epic fantasy. There's a dramatis personae at the beginning, but it's only about 2 and change pages, and Alwyn's our only point of view character throughout the entire story. so it wasn't particularly difficult to play Guess Who with the characters. One thing is for sure, though, Ryan has a knack for names in his novels. They always sort of just feel alive and that they belong in a fantasy world. Like Captain Evadine Corlane or the City of Kalantor, they just feel really like things that are really at home in a fantasy world. So I really love those. Covenant Company's captain, Lady Evadine Corlane, is a devout woman with an absolutely magnetic aura. Seriously. Whenever she speaks, the other characters are totally captivated by her and inevitably swirled up right into her orbit. She's just that much of a powerful presence to the characters in the story. From sermons to the company about their righteousness of purpose on their campaign against the Pretender, to the individual conversation she has with our named characters like Alwyn, it's clear that she has that sort of pull to her. And she's definitely got a feeling of inspiration from Joan of Arc, and I'm a total sucker for that kind of character, the inspiring, martially strong leader. Besides Evadine, the side characters are generally compelling as well. Toria, for example, Alwyn's closest friend, has an attitude that really keeps Alwyn in check. She definitely gives him crap a lot throughout the story and is generally worth a few chuckles here and there. So it's pretty easy to like her. Alwyn himself, like I mentioned before, has a definite journey throughout the story that makes him both a compelling character in the story and also a compelling narrator to the story. At this point, it's pretty clear that Anthony Ryan has a thing for the narrative style where the main character is in old age and they're breaking the fourth wall by narrating the story to the reader. He did it with Valen's Raven Shadow books and again with this Covenant of Steel here. And on the whole, I'm kind of tired of this style. It generally doesn't super work for me. But this specific time, it jumped out to me because Alwyn starts the story as illiterate. Although he did always love his wordy turns of phrases, and during his journey he's taught his letters, hence his surname Scribe. The result of his trade being a scribe is that his love of words is reflected in the prose of the story itself. So it really feels like Alwyn, as an old man, is writing with a care for the words that he's penning, which is pretty interesting, and it results in prose that's anything but workmanlike. There's a quote in particular that made me laugh, where a character calls Alwyn out on his wordiness. It says, "You do have a gift for employing 10 words when one will do, scribe." And I thought that was pretty funny. I mentioned that the Pariah has strong themes of honor, compassion, and loyalty throughout. Alwyn begins the story as an outlaw, so honor and compassion are largely anathema to him. He has no idea what they are or what they mean. Loyalty exists in the form of some level of camaraderie with his fellow outlaws in Deccan's band, but at the end of the day, they're all outlaws and they're totally ready to kill each other at any point in time for selfish motives. As the story moves, though, Alwyn clearly wrestles with these ideas as his outlook on life changes, and as he encounters events and people, like Evadine Corlane, that are greater than himself. He ends up showing a lot of growth throughout the story, which really helps him become a more compelling character. All in all, The Pariah was good, though not an amazing start to a new series, because of the weird plot structure that resulted in some of the pacing issues. I'm definitely still looking forward to continuing the series, though, as by the end I became pretty invested in the characters and the world and the plot. And I'm really looking forward to where they go next. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like and or a comment below and let me know what you thought of the video, the book, or whatever else you're reading. I'll see you next time.